Coming up on this week's episode of TechSNAP, we'll tell you about the perfect crime that's cloud-enabled, the NSA gets caught in Google's cookies, and then it's a new breed of corrupt internet police, and a fantastic batch of your questions, our answers. All that and a heck of a lot more on this week's episode of TechSNAP. Everyone, and welcome to TechSNAP. This is episode 140 of Jupiter Broadcasting's weekly systems network and administration podcast. We stream this episode live on December 12th, 2013. This episode is brought to you by our three fine sponsors, GoDaddy, Ting, and iX Systems. I'll tell you more about those great sponsors as this show goes on, and our live stream is powered by the incredible Scale Engine over at scaleengine.com. My name is Chris, and joining us every single week is our host, the admin, the tech, and the teacher, Mr. Alan Jude. Hey there, Alan.
Hey, Chris, everybody. Thanks for watching.
Hey, man. Here we are at the end of 2013, and next week, I want to just mention it, we're going to do a double episode, and I just remembered we didn't get any submissions for our biggest stories of 2013.
Oh, yeah.
I don't think we got any. So come on, guys. Come on, guys. Well, to make it up, to kind of incentivize you, well, Al and I, we huddled before the show today, and we said, you know what we ought to do? Big show. We got to do a big show. So we got a big show for you guys today. In fact, our first story... some people are calling it the perfect exploit, and even one of our viewers, the company he works for, was involved in kind of the disclosure of all of this. So maybe that's a good place to start, Alan. Should we start with the perfect exploit?
Yes. So this one was called the perfect crime.
Oh, crime,
it's a flaw in Microsoft Office 365 that allowed an attacker to make off with your documents without you being able to tell that it even happened.
Well, what could go wrong there?
So the researchers who discovered the attack are calling it an ice dagger because you stab someone with it and the ice melts and there's no evidence left behind at all.
Nice.
And it took them months of effort and also months of efforts by the Microsoft security response team to actually discover how it happened. So it starts back in April of this year.
Okay.
A customer's node analyzed an HTTP request that triggered a high-risk heuristic alert. So all of a sudden there was an outgoing request that looked really strange. So the request was made from a Microsoft Word document, it was for a Microsoft Word document that was actually hosted on a Tor hidden service node.
Oh.
Right, it was a onion.to address. So in this case, the request to the Tor service was not made by a user, but made by a Microsoft Office document. And so that made it really suspicious.
The document itself made the outgoing request?
Apparently. Or something similar to that.
Right.
So it was the user, it wasn't initiated by the user per se.
Right, okay.
So upon reviewing the metadata of the request, they noticed that there was an extra header, www-authenticate, and it had a bunch of variables in it, including root domain equals sharepoint.com. Even though the request obviously wasn't going to SharePoint, it was going to some hidden service on Tor.
Yeah.
So that's at the point when they started assessing the situation and treating it as data theft, right? They figured that somebody was trying to steal a document. So the way it worked was an end user had received an email specifically addressed to them. Like, there's spear phishing, and then there's like tailoring the attack to one specific individual. So it was like super spear phishing.
Mm-hmm.
And it basically was an email that included a link. When you clicked the link, it went to the a website hosted on Tor and popped up an ms-word://URL. So it causes a box to pop up in your browser saying, would you like to open this in Microsoft Word? If you've been using Office 365 on the internet, that's how you're used to opening documents. So they click yes.
Sure.
And due to a bug in Microsoft Word Office 2013 desktop, which is basically the client for Microsoft's new Offices in the Cloud service.
Yeah.
Because of a bug in Word, when the malicious website sent that www-authenticate header when Office was downloading the Word doc, Microsoft Word sent back the user's private SharePoint access token.
Oh, you're kidding me.
Even though it should only have ever sent that to SharePoint.com. But I'm guessing it seems like Microsoft Word just assumed only SharePoint would ever send that header. So with the token, an attacker can then access every document you have in Office 365, including SharePoint, SkyDrive, Outlook Web Access, everything.
So that token is as good as putting your username and password in.
Yeah, it's basically you put in your username and password, and then it gets passed to Word so that Word can download stuff separately.
Right.
So yes, and apparently it's good. That token's good for at least a couple of weeks.
Oh, good.
Before it expires. So then the attacker can copy all your documents, or maybe then delete them and then try to ransom them back to you, or just make subtle modifications in the documents that you wouldn't notice, and then you would send it to somebody and be very embarrassed or something.
Or just read them.
Right, just reading them is one thing, but making subtle modifications is actually something covered by that book we recommended the other week, the sequel to the Mark Rusinovich one. Mm-hmm. So the first one was called 0 Day, and the second one's, I think, Trojan Horse. And in that one, Iranians hack into the UN Committee on Disarmament or whatever, and subtly alter a report they were writing about Iran's nuclear program. So all of a sudden the report says, oh, there's nothing to worry about.
Yeah, they changed their grades.
Instead of, yeah. But they altered the report so it said there's nothing to worry about instead of what the report originally said, that Iran was eminently going to have a nuclear weapon. And but they did it just after the person saved the document, but before they emailed it. So when it got emailed, it got a digital signature attached. And so as far as anyone could tell, it proved that the file was not modified in transit.
Wow, yeah. It would look legit. And all of the mechanisms in place to validate that would say, yep, it passes.
Exactly. So, you can make small changes to people's stuff and totally, you could, if you got into your competitor's Office 365, you could change their quote by changing, a 2 to a 3 or something, and all of a sudden their quote's for $10,000 more, and your quote is suddenly cheaper instead of more expensive.
You dog.
Right? Or just little things like that. You could just totally mess up your competitors, and they would never know.
With a 2-week token, you could sit back and watch documents as they're created, snag new ones as they're made, review them for yourself. You could keep a copy of them. I mean, the possibilities are endless.
Exactly. It's all kinds of things like that. It's ridiculous. So they broke down the flow of the attack. So it goes like this. So you get an email asking you to review a document or visit a web page. A document full of coupons or somebody's resume or a price quote or a contract or something, right? If you blank that out to a corporation, you can be guaranteed at least one person there is going to open it.
Yeah.
Right? So they click on the link. The web page asks you to open a document in Word, just like SharePoint Online asks you. It looks exactly the same.
Looks the same, yeah.
And because the dialogue is so common when you're using SharePoint Online, which is going to be all the time if that's what your business uses, it's really hard to believe that anyone's going to hit refuse on that request.
Right. It's standard procedure.
And then Word is now requesting the document from a malicious website. The website adds that header, and Word gives away your token.
Pretty clever.
And then the attacker has your 365 token, and they can do whatever they want.
It's interesting watching the chat room's reaction to this story. By the vast majority, they're all, well, this is why I don't use cloud services. And it is like, you do see this and you think, well, this might just be the symptom of a software that was always designed to run on your desktop, moving into the cloud. But at the same time,
yeah, but
you kind of like these sharing functions.
The researchers, they've found similar problems in a bunch of other software as a service platforms, and they expect to be able to publish the results in February once the patches come out, because they're still confined by responsible disclosure to wait for the patch before they document what the hack was.
Not too surprising, right? This token thing here doesn't sound like it's probably all that uncommon.
Well, yeah. Somebody had to figure out how it worked, but they only found it because it was used against them. Well, not these guys are the researchers that came in to solve it, but they go on to say that their client is a big corporation or government, and they're not allowed to talk about who they are.
Yeah.
But the spear phishing and the fact that somebody was going after them and using a very sophisticated attack really goes to show that they were a big target.
Well, and because it is the way the system functions, like they mentioned in the article, there is no workaround. You're not solving this problem if you want SharePoint Online to function for you.
Right. And also it took Microsoft a long time to fix, right? So they found out they found the suspicious activity in April. The researchers completed all their research and had figured out what happened. And on May 29th, they sent the results to Microsoft. And Microsoft finally got around to releasing the patch for Patch Tuesday this month, in December. Because of how, they basically would have to change the entire way that SharePoint works and big patches to Office. And they would probably have to wait until enough people had that patch to make the online service require the change, right?
Oh, right. That's a dependency they have to figure out now.
Yeah, it's like you can't just break everybody's Office until they update.
Yeah.
Even though that's what you would really like to do.
Yeah, they're kind of in this interesting position where because they... so with
most
Google,
of the bug seems to be on the client side, so...
Yeah, and with Google, when they have to update Google Docs, they just push out a new version of the website. But Microsoft, because they also have this binary software aspect
desktop.
of it, there's these two pieces that are interconnected that is more challenging to deploy fixes
Although
for.
most of the bugs seems to be in the client side, so the patch will be able to fix it and they won't have to do much on the online side.
Oh, good. Yeah.
But, if the patch is changing the way that header works entirely and, not sending that header anymore, then that makes all the old Office stop working.
Right.
So, yeah, I can see. But yeah, the patch is finally released. It's MS13-104, and it has a CVE number of 2013-5054.
Okay.
But the conclusion from the article is that this was the perfect crime. There were no malware payload to reverse engineer.
Right.
Because there was no malware.
Right.
There's no file hash that you can trace through time to see if that file existed anywhere else because there was no file.
Right.
Like just that empty Microsoft Word document as a decoy. Mm-hmm. Like the document doesn't actually contain an exploit. It's just a document that says, oh, hi, here's what you were expecting it to be.
And a virus would scan that and never find anything wrong.
Because there's nothing wrong with it. The file's completely legitimate. Yeah. It's just the website that's evil. There's no IP address to locate and investigate because they did it through Tor. There's no server to confiscate. By the time they figured out what was going on, they couldn't. The Tor service was gone. They couldn't connect to it anymore.
Yeah.
The attacker got what they wanted and took the server down.
Wow.
The attacker simply gets away with your Office 365 token for good, and it's important in the context of understanding the limitations of existing endpoint and perimeter defenses in the context of these SaaS applications and cloud services. Because, if none of it's running on your computer, if it's all on the website, then there's nothing for you to be able to detect when something bad is happening. And it's not like Microsoft's going to keep an audit log of every person that opened every document to be able to tell you, hey, it's weird that Bob in accounting has just opened every Word document in the entire SharePoint.
Right.
So maybe Bob's token got stolen. But Microsoft doesn't provide you with that information, right? It's all online.
Well, that'd be extremely hard for them operationally to even pull that off because in a corporation...
Just to store the logs for that. If Office 365 has got thousands of people making requests every second, right?
Yeah. It's a brave new world, Alan. This is a good one.
The Patch Tuesday included a bunch of other important patches. I think there were 5 with a critical rating.
Yeah.
That means they could be remotely exploited.
Yeah.
So Microsoft also patched the Win-Verified Trust signature validation vulnerability that's in core Windows that could be used to disguise a malicious application as trustworthy. So you could make a piece of malware and make it look like it was signed good, even though it wasn't. And there's exploits in the wild that are targeting this vulnerability, and mostly in Asia. But an exe that looks like it's signed and verified and good, and you run it, and it turns out it was malware.
Mm-hmm.
And obviously these stories made the news all over the place. Beta News had very good coverage. Network World was okay. Information Week has. Well, Network World, Information Week, and SC Magazine all have giant full-page ads that pop up over the story, which is really annoying.
Yeah.
But SC Magazine has, because it's computer security stuff, their coverage is a little more in-depth.
Okay.
But all the real details on the researcher's blog. It's better to get it there anyway than the news. But I included all the links to the various news stories.
Very good.
Because some of them go into more detail about the other patches that are also important, but don't have a cool story behind them.
They're also security vulnerabilities. They're just not as flashy.
Yep.
Very good. All right, Alma, why don't we take a second and thank our first sponsor this week, a new sponsor to the TechSNAP program, and probably any of you longtime TechSNAP listeners out there know that this is a company that both Alan and I are big fans of. We've worked with them for a long time. It's IX Systems, enterprise servers and storage for open source. Both Alan and I are IX Systems customers. Now, Alan, you've got way more IX Systems gear than I do. But I've got a FreeNAS Mini that I love a lot.
Yes, and I have, well, my home router is a little short depth I bought there. Brand new Intel Haswell, the latest stuff. That was one of my favorite things was the local computer store didn't even have it in stock yet, and IX ships me a system with like the newest Supermicro motherboard and the newest Haswell processor and all the greatest stuff.
Yeah, you love IX Systems because of their fantastic support for FreeBSD. They use Intel processors, which both you and I are huge fans of in our rigs. You've just gotten some new hardware recently too, which is really cool.
On top of the little 1U short depth I showed off a couple weeks ago on the show that I bought for my home router, and I bought stuff in the past. But I bought the giant 4U server for Scale Engine.
Look at that thing.
120 terabytes of storage in it.
Oh, Alan, that's awesome. Yeah. So for you guys on the video version, I'm showing the box right now. All the hard drives came in.
Well, the box with the server, because the server is like 150 pounds, and because it's hard to pack them safely, they ship this hard drive separately in a different box, and you can see the amount of foam between each hard drive. So the hard drives don't knock into each other or anything, or they know that UPS or FedEx is not necessarily going to be that nice to your package, so they pack it really well. And
those actually are super handy. I hold on to those. Like those are the kind of those boxes and that packing. Like I use that for other stuff later.
That's even fancier than the packaging that Seagate does when they ship their hard drives to the store.
Oh yeah,
they have that like rigid foam instead of that nice squishy foam.
Right. IX Systems, I have wanted them to sponsor this show for so long because I believe they're really a perfect fit with our audience. They are serious about the equipment that they ship. They're passionate about it. And also, Alan, aren't they one of the only server companies that has third-party audits of their product reviews? And I think that's kind of a big deal.
So, because when, lots of places will have testimonials or whatever, but, it's their friends or, or fake. They just make them up. They're not actually third-party verified ones.
Yeah.
Or, they don't have customers that like them so much they'll come back and write a white paper about why they chose them.
Yeah.
They have a bunch for FreeNAS about various companies and governments and schools and stuff that use FreeNAS and why they use it and why they buy the hardware for it from IX Systems. But it's also just the little things. So we bought this server and it's got 30 some odd hard drives, right? And you can see them all in the box there.
Yeah.
And so when Stefan got there to put it in the rack, he was expecting to have to put in 120 of those little screws to mount them in the drive brackets.
Oh, tedium to the extreme.
Yeah, and he opens up the box and it's already done.
Oh, nice.
And then to take it a step further, they put the stickers on the drives, so the drives are actually numbered.
Oh, so, very nice.
I didn't have to put the stickers on and number. Oh, this is drive number 1 and this drive number 2. All of them were already numbered, and so he just put them in the chassis after he racked it, and it only took a couple of minutes to get the server online.
Well, and not only that, but one of the nice things is once you have it deployed, IX Systems will do a burn-in process, like a QA process before they ship it to you.
Yeah, they do that before they ship it so that you're guaranteed it's going to work when it gets there.
Yeah.
But they'll also do the configuration for you, which helped me less in this case and more in a case where I was shipping it directly to a data center in the States. So I wasn't even going to go there.
Yeah.
I was paying for remote hands for them to put it in the rack and connect the power.
Yeah.
Right? They give you this worksheet, and you fill it out, and they'll set all the BIOS settings for you. It's like, oh, I want to make sure AESNI is turned on, and VTD is turned on, and set this like this, and set this as the boot order, and all this. And then install FreeBSD, set this as the IP address, set up the IPMI on this internal LAN, VLAN, and all that so that you just have to turn it on, and it works. It's super great, especially if you're doing remote stuff.
And lets you hit the ground running.
Yeah,
which is
and
nice.
Also, unlike a lot of places I've looked at buying from before, IX Systems will ship worldwide. Right? I don't have to worry about the fact that they only ship to the US or the US and Canada, right? If I need to send a box to Amsterdam, they will do that for me. Right? Or if I want to send a box to Australia, they'll do that for me.
They also work in the FreeBSD community. Like they have members of the FreeBSD community who work with them.
I don't think anybody that works there wasn't the FreeBSD committer first.
Okay, there you go. That's pretty hardcore. Well, if you guys want
to... just on FreeNAS, they have 6 developers working full-time.
And didn't they recently pick up somebody from Apple who'd worked on some of the Apple backend stuff that was pretty cool?
Well, Jordan Hubbard, who co-founded FreeBSD, left Apple to become the CTO at IX Systems.
That's pretty awesome. So I want you to go over to ixsystems.com/TechSNAP where you can find out more information. They got a landing page for us there. They've also got a free download for the ultimate guide to buying a new server for open source. 11 key traits you must absolutely demand from your provider. And these guys absolutely know what they're talking about. I've had the privilege, I think, for at least 4, maybe 5 years in a row now, I have gotten to shake the hands of the team at IX Systems, talk with them and say, you guys have got a sponsor. Like for 4 years now, I've been saying that because I know it's such a great fit for you guys and anybody that wants to deploy some enterprise-grade gear. And, go check out a lot of their other options. They have TrueNAS and all kinds of really great enterprise-scale products.
The TrueNAS is, they sell them just a little box and fill it with hard drives, and it's a great way to make sure that you're going to get the hardware that's going to work perfectly with FreeNAS.
Mm-hmm. Oh, man. A great product, great company. So go to ixsystems.com/TechSNAP. And a really big thank you to IX Systems for sponsoring the TechSNAP program. And Alan, I should probably link your hardware pictures in the show notes. So I'll put a link to that if people want to go check that out. ixsystems.com/TechSNAP. That is so awesome to have IX Systems on board.
It is.
And I've got some IX Systems gear behind me right now, actually. All right, Alan.
Well, I'm using my IX Systems gear to talk to you right now, so that should count.
Oh, all right. Fine. You win, Alan. All right, our next story.
Well, you're using yours to store the show, so.
That's a good point. Also a critical role. Also critical. And when I was decided it was time to get a ZFS solution, that was the place I went to. Like, there's just no questions asked. I was like, okay, this is where I'm going to go. I know they got the best stuff. And they even worked with me. Like, I sent them some emails asking some questions. I specifically had questions like, do I need 12 gigabytes of RAM for what I'm doing? Do I need more? Do I need less? And, they were so great. And at no point ever were they, trying to push me into spending more than I needed to. They're like, okay, well, if this is your workload, this is the hardware you probably want to get. It was a really good purchasing experience. And I felt like the person I was talking to, I could pretty much bounce any question I could come up with off of them, and they'd have an answer for me, too.
Well, and yeah, I spent 45 minutes on the phone just talking about which SAS controller to use and what are the pros and cons of using cheaper hard drives versus more, and then set up a conversation later with somebody else to talk about, all right, I'm going to have 30 drives in ZFS. Am I better off doing a bunch of VDEVs of 6 drives or fewer of 10 drives to get that little bit more space for less money? It's like I can fill up all 36 bays with groups of 6 drives and get the same amount of storage as only using 30 drives in groups of 10. And so there'll be a performance difference, but we're talking about saving $2,300.
Mm-hmm.
So, and with their help, I made the decision to do it with 30 drives instead of 36.
There you go. All right. Well, this next news story might as well be Alan told you this was going to happen. That might as well be the headline for our next one. New NSA leaks revealed the NSA is using Google cookies as well as other cookies, but Google's the big one, to track and pinpoint targets. And what the headline says is for hacking purposes. Alan, what the heck's going on here?
Internal presentation slides from the NSA through Snowden show that when companies allow customers on the internet to better service them with advertising, the technique opens the door for similar tracking by the government. Right?
That makes sense.
Google puts a cookie on you and follows around all the sites you go to that also have Google ads, right?
Yeah.
So or Google Analytics or any site that includes code from Google can be like, oh, I recognize you, and they're building this profile on you.
Right.
And, they have their privacy policy about how they'll use that information, and they will, they use it mostly to target you with ads that make sense.
And Facebook does it too, and it's a way in Twitter.
The Google one with the ads actually generally works pretty good, right? It's like, oh, yes, I am actually interested in buying this product that monitors temperatures in a data center. That's actually something cool that I would have never seen an ad for otherwise.
Right, and that's how they target that. It usually they recognize, okay, this is, they're not saying this is Alan
this guy's
Jude.
going to datacenternowledge.com a lot and shopping at IX Systems.
Yep, exactly.
So on and so on.
Exactly, and they're not saying it's Alan Jude. They're just saying it's 105192 FBA or whatever, right? I mean, it's,
who seems to like servers.
But it is unique to you, and so if the NSA can pick that up, it makes sense they could use that to track that unique ID across the web as it hits different sites and services.
Right. If the cookie's sent in the clear, then it's easy for them to pick it up when they're monitoring, or if it's sent over SSL and they're as we've seen, sitting behind Google's SSL gateways and spying on the traffic between Google's data centers, then they can find out, hey, this person with this token has been doing a lot of stuff with Bitcoin or has been really interested in all this Snowden stuff. Let's follow them and figure out what, here, we know what their IP address is, and even when it changes, we see that we're following them through it.
Yeah.
Or it was similar how the FBI was figuring out who people are, even though they were using Tor by following their cookies as they went through different exit nodes and stuff.
Yep.
To relate different sessions to the same person using a cookie.
Mm-hmm.
According to the document, the NSA and the British DCHQ are using small tracking files or cookies that the advertising networks put on your computer to identify people browsing the internet. If you don't want this, in addition to the do not track bit that some networks ignore, private browsing mode and restart it once an hour or something, and then that you're never tracked for that long. The intelligence agency has found particular use in Google's specific tracking mechanism known as the pref cookie, which is your preferences, which includes your ability to tell Google that you don't want them to track certain information about you. Mm-hmm. But again, it's a unique identifier, so they know that it's the guy that doesn't want us to track him. So let's remember we don't want to track him.
Yeah. What I found,
the cookies themselves don't actually contain personal information like your name or your email address or anything. It's just a numeric code so that Google can tie it back to information they know.
The problem to me too is it seems like these kinds of things are getting laid down on your computer at such a high rate. Almost every site you go to is probably laying down one of these cookies because they'll have the
More
Google
like
widget. Yeah, right? Yeah. And so unless you really browser up and put extensions in and install Ghostery and NoScript and things like that, it's really hard to fight this.
You just have to dump the cookies often.
Yeah.
But at the same time, that can get really annoying because those cookies are meant to provide features, and they actually do.
Right. It is very annoying.
But it says the cookie allows the NSA to single out individual communications among the massive amount of stuff going over the internet. And the slides even go on to say that the cookies are used to enable remote exploitation. Right? They know who exactly they want to try to go after.
Right. So they can sift you out, and then do a quantum insert, as they call it. Which is a ridiculous name. Yeah, I think also it came out, too, that the NSA was using commercially gathered information to help locate mobile devices. And remember, there was that big upset recently about Google bypassing the Safari setting on the iPhone to continue to use the tracking cookie. And when they did that, the NSA was able to leverage that on mobile devices and then combine it with location data and all kinds of stuff. I find it hard to believe they're only doing this to foreign non-U.S. citizens, but
yeah, they're definitely doing it to everybody.
Yeah. Yeah, the real culprit here, though, is so what can Google do? So should Google discontinue using cookies? Should Facebook and Twitter stop using cookies?
Well, they can't really. They need to have one just so they know that you're signed into Google, right? Their cookies are kind of important. That's why we haven't just disabled them in all browsers always, right?
Right. That's why I don't, yeah. Huh. Boy, Alan.
It's do you want to have to log into Google once every hour?
I think it's interesting that in the slides they would say they would use these cookies for remote execution, and in the slides they also specifically talked about the Google Pref cookie. It came up in the slides that we're using this, and these slides are from a couple of years ago.
It's definitely the most commund one, I imagine.
Yeah, it's got to be right.
And then Facebook right behind it. And
when I was digging through the article, it did specifically state that just having a Google +1 widget on your website, then the visitor gets that cookie, even if you just have that +1.
Or if you have a Facebook like button.
Yeah.
Or if most sites have all of them now, right? And a tweet button and a bunch of other ones. And, almost every site has at least one of those. And then if you're the NSA, you can make the correlation, right? This Google ID and this Facebook ID are the same person. And so when we go to a site that only has Facebook, we see that person, we can now say that Google person is actually this Facebook person. And so they went to this site, even though there's no Google code on it. Right? Because how many people are there that have no account at Google, no account at Facebook, and no account at Twitter, and a bunch of other ones, and never visit any site that has that? It's pretty much impossible to use the internet and do that.
Well, should I, as somebody who has a website that people visit, should I turn off all of these social share things, and I don't have a lot on now, but I think analytics is turned on and those kinds of things. Should I turn all that stuff off as like an active?
I don't know that it helps.
Because it's just what, one drop in the ocean?
Yep.
Well, maybe like just like every damn site that you visit outside the U.S. that warns you about cookies, maybe it'll take off. I don't know.
Maybe.
Any other thoughts on this one?
No. All right, there's one more thing. The other slides indicate the NSA is collecting location data transmitted by mobile apps, and that is called Operation Happyfoot.
Oh, jeez.
It helps the NSA map internet addresses to physical locations more precisely than possible using traditional internet geolocation.
Yeah. Oh, interesting. It's exploiting mobile ads that use location tracking for general targeting.
Yep.
Oh, boy. Nothing like building in GPS locations with your computing device. Right, Alan? Good times. Yep. Good times. All right, well, why don't I thank GoDaddy, one of the sponsors of the TechSNAP program. Now, GoDaddy has got something pretty awesome. They've been a longtime sponsor of the TechSNAP program, and now they have a brand new, updated website builder that makes it easy to create your own website, put your business online, and find new customers. You can choose from hundreds of customizable designs, and you are on your way. Website Builder includes a free domain, hosting, and 24/7 support. It is go time. Go over to GoDaddy.com and enter the promo code WSB7, Website Builder 7, WSB7. That gets you the Website Builder for only $1 a month for 12 months. That gives you their SEO-friendly optimizations, their mobile spin-off version, and the integrated hosting and web management tools for $1 per month. So go over to GoDaddy.com, use the promo code WSB7, and go own your internet real estate. Go get something for your project. For your grandpa. I don't care what it is, but you need to go own that. So that way when somebody's Googling on that, they find the right thing like you. And GoDaddy is going to help you make that happen. And as the holidays come up, you're visiting friends and family. If you've got a family member who has a small business who is not getting their presence online, and that's just shameful in 2013, help them out and use that promo code WSB7, and they can try it for a year. And with that website interface, the builder interface, you can help them, and it won't take much of your time, or they can manage it because it's so easy to use. And also, please, if you've got somebody that you know who doesn't have a mobile-friendly version of their website, you got to take them aside and say, it's 2013. It's 2013, and people want to visit your site while they're on the go, especially if you're a restaurant or a movie theater. I am so sick and tired of going to movie theaters and restaurant websites and getting full flash pages on my mobile phone. It is not 1998 anymore, okay? And you can solve this problem very quickly and very easily by going over to GoDaddy.com using the promo code WSB7. Some limitations do apply, so go check their website because they have them linked right there at the very top. If you click that banner in our show notes, it'll supercharge your shopping session with our discount, and you can also get the limitations if you want to read them. So a big thank you to GoDaddy for sponsoring the TechSNAP program. I gotta go set up a few of those. For just for my mom, for my uncle who's in real estate, like all these guys that are just, they have like Facebook pages and that's it. Shameful, Alan. All right, well, our next story in the TechSNAP program, British Police Intellectual Property Crime Unit, that's an acronym I bet, attempts to censor the global internet. Okay, what?
So we've talked a little bit about this in the past, and I got a bunch more information from one of the parties that's actually involved in this.
Oh, right on.
And so,
lay it on me, sir.
So in the past, we had talked about, so this British crime unit will decide randomly it wants to kill a website, and so it'll email the registrar saying, take down this website, or we'll tell ICANN on you, and then they'll take away your ability to be a registrar.
Oh, okay.
And like I said, a lot of registrars were just doing it then because they didn't want to risk their entire business on keeping the domain of somebody, one customer online, right?
Wasn't worth it to them.
Yeah. So anyway, so this is today, a special police unit can decide that a certain website needs to disappear from the internet and threaten its domain name registrar into revoking the address until further notice without any legal basis whatsoever. There's no court order, there's nothing, just these guys that work for this police unit just decide and to write a scary letter, and
it's not even like,
because they're a law enforcement agency, they're being taken seriously.
So it's not even like the Justice Department here in the United States level kind of request. It's just coming from like the City of London Police.
Yes, and worse, they're not asking you to just take down the website. They want you to redirect it to a specific IP address, which is spam from the companies who are backing this police unit. trying to sell you legitimate versions of the stuff.
Wow. Well, legitimate in whose description of the term? I mean, that is some shady. That sounds like shady malware hijacking kind of practices to me. I mean, that is
almost deplorable. It's most literally, this police unit is entirely controlled by the copyright holders.
Right. And then they use the police as their strong arm to
strong arm people into, hey, there's somebody trying to compete with us or whatever. We're going to take their website and point it at our domain and try to sell people stuff.
Oh, jeez. I like, how does this just sounds like straight up corruption to me. Like straight up bought and paid for corruption.
It's not even barely thinly veiled. It's just right there in your face.
Yeah. Yeah.
So the PIPCU is claiming that its Operation Creative was successful. It was a 3-month campaign, and they were able to improperly seize 40 domain names that they accused of copyright infringement with no basis at all. Wow. They just decided to accuse them of copyright infringement, and the 40 domains were shut down. Some of the sites just shut down, where most of them just moved to a different domain name.
Isn't it interesting to watch copyright be the tool that is used by the existing power structure? Once again, copyright's being used once again by the power structures to really ruin the internet.
Yep. And we'll talk about more in the roundup with the stuff going on in YouTube, and it's the same thing.
Oh, yes. Yeah. Yeah, I'm fired up about that. That's for sure. I think that's part of the reason why this bothers me so much right now. And you could see something, we have seen, do you remember the day after SOPA here in the U.S., the day after SOPA failed, there was a whole string of 40 sites were pulled down by ICE, by the Immigration Enforcement Agency here in the U.S. They pulled down 40 sites at once and put up that big legal FBI banner on there and all that kind of stuff.
But so these guys are doing the same thing, except for instead of that banner, they're putting up an e-commerce store.
Yeah, here, go buy some goods.
It's
I wonder if they try to make it look like the old site. If they're trying to
not
trick.
Really. They're just it's a lot of it's the same content. They're just trying to charge you for it.
Yeah, I can kind of see some of the logic. You were. I mean, okay. Let's say somebody put up an album, right? And they had all up on MP3s, and then you replace that page with a place to buy the album. I can almost see the logic process they went down to get there, but it's
killing off an entire BitTorrent search engine and replacing it with a site that tries to sell you some movies that aren't what you were looking for.
Right.
Doesn't make any sense.
I went to go get a Linux ISO.
Running a search engine is not illegal or copyright infringement.
Yeah, that's the big thing about this, isn't it? That's
the big thing.
Yeah.
Well, so, the owner of these 40 domains didn't get a court order. The registrars, the web hosts, they weren't given a court order. They were just strong-armed. So the worst part is when you actually dig into how this PIPCU works. Mm-hmm. So investigators who don't work for the police, they work for the copyright trolls, like the British Phonographic Institute or the Federation Against Copyright Theft or the MPAA or whatever.
Yeah.
They scour the internet and pick out a bunch of websites they decide they don't like, based on whatever their criteria is, because they work for a private company. So it's just in their interest to just Google for the name of a movie and list every single site that's on there.
Yeah.
Right? Because we saw this, an example of this the other day, or a couple of weeks ago, right? Where HBO, or not HBO because they don't do it. Some other companies, I think it was Disney or something, they requested Google take down their own site because it mentioned their movie.
Wow. Well, did you hear about? And I don't remember the details. Trying to look it up right now, but I guess one of the mirrors for Ubuntu had a copyright claim filed against them and demanded they pull all the Ubuntu ISOs off the FTP server because the file name had 8.1 and the Microsoft search picked that up as a pirated 8.1 Windows ISO because it had .iso and 8.1 in the file name, so therefore it must be Windows. And so they issued an automated takedown to that host because they had Ubuntu totally legit, 100% legit ISO images that just happened to have 8.1 in the file name.
Exactly. So these guys, it's in their interest to target as much stuff as possible, not to be accurate.
Yeah.
So they just spam every domain that mentions anything that might be related to something their copyright owner holds. Then they forward this intelligence to the PIPCU, who then decides whether or not to attempt to take down the site. And then, they maybe send the site owner an email being like, hey, stop doing that illegal thing. It's like, well, it's not illegal. What are you talking about? I'm running a BitTorrent search engine. There's no files here.
Yeah.
And then, the PIPCU then will ask their network or 60 different advertising networks to stop placing banner ads on the pirated site.
So they're also cutting off the money supply.
So they try cutting off the money supply. And if that doesn't kill the site, finally, after a certain period, they will send a letter to the site's registrar asking it to suspend the domain name. Instead of a court order, the particular document refers to an outdated section of ICANN's registrar accreditation agreement that states that your accreditation can be terminated if the organization is found to permit illegal activity in the registration or use of domain names.
You remember back to that big seizure after the SOPA failed to pass. One of the things they did during those seizures is they worked hand in hand with their bank accounts at the different financial institutions to also shut down those sites' money systems, like whether it was card transactions or savings accounts, whatever it was.
Most of those shutdowns were related to the Super Bowl. It was like people selling
fake watches,
team jerseys and stuff.
Jerseys and It was fake stuff. It was fake merch. But it was interesting. They still went after the financial angle in there too. That kind of just seems to be the playbook now.
Yep.
And
so this scare tactic causes a lot of the registrars to suspend their domain rather than risking their entire business and losing the ability to register the domains. Luckily, there's one registrar who decided to stick up for the users and the rest of the internet. And that was EasyDNS. It was actually originally just a DNS hosting company.
Yeah.
But they turned into a registrar when they started offering that DNS server failover system.
Yeah.
Where they actually changed the records at the registrar to deal with servers being attacked and so on. And so they're a registrar. And so they had to start with a blog post at the beginning of October called "What Happened to Due Process?"
Good for them.
Why are we just getting these letters? And if you look at that post, there's actually, you can see a copy of the letter they got. It's got this giant City of London police stamp at the top.
Yeah, it does.
It says, "This is an alert issued by the United Kingdom's Police Intellectual Property Crime Unit. They're providing you with information, a notification of a domain's direct link to an online crime."
What a waste of tax dollars. They have a whole unit that does this. What a waste of money.
And then all of a sudden they drop the City of London part and make it sound like they're the entire UK government's power behind it.
Police Intellectual Property Crime Unit, dun dun.
Yeah. And they're saying this is a domain name suspension request. So technically they're just asking nicely, but then they couch it with all these evil terms to scare people, right? "Dear sir, this is the second request. On September 24th, EasyDNS Technologies was emailed a domain suspension request for the following domain, and we've not received a reply. It's been a whole week. The domains continue to be accessible by members of the public and still making illicit financial gains for criminals that are operating it."
Oh, illicit financial gains.
They're calling the owner of the domain a criminal, even though they don't even point out what it is, what crime that this person's committing.
Mm-hmm.
So what exactly makes a website operator a criminal? And the website in question is just a search engine. And they're not hosting anything at all. It's just an index, right? They're the same as Google. They don't host anything.
Right.
They're just pointing to stuff.
Well, they lean on Google quite a bit, too.
They do. Yes, Google gets like 1 billion takedown notices a year or something.
Yeah. Yeah, it is pretty ridiculous.
So specifically, it references section 5.5.2.1.3 of the ICANN Register Accreditation Agreement. And it also says, request that we freeze the domain so the WHOIS records cannot be changed at all. And they direct us to redirect DNS to a specific IP address, which is this e-commerce site they've set up. And the police say they reserve the right to refer the matter to ICANN, saying that, if you don't do this, we're going to get your stuff taken down.
Yeah. Wow.
And he said after he read the order, he realized that that he had to write the blog about this because it opens all kinds of philosophical issues about the way the internet works. And, he found that other registrars were just accepting these letters and seizing people's domain names.
I think it's just like they don't want to. They don't. First of all, it costs them money and time to hassle with it, and they probably just figure, well, if we fight it, honestly, and they're probably right in this regard. It's not like, who are they going to go to, right? Like, who's going to go? Oh, well, no, the City of London police are wrong, and you shouldn't do what they're asking. Like, no authority is going to say that. So, like, I think they looked at their end game and said, well, we could fight this, but at the end of the day, we're probably still going to have to shut down this website. We're still having to pull these records, so we might as well just do it. Don't you think? That's got to be the justification.
Then EasyDNS went and read the agreement that the police were referencing. In a different part of the agreement, it specifically says that the registrar has an obligation to their customers and bound by the register agreement not to arbitrarily make changes to the customer settings without a valid form of authorization.
Amen.
That can only be superseded when needed on a legal basis.
I feel like it's part of real estate. You own that.
The registrar is not allowed to make changes to your DNS without either an FOA from you or that being superseded by documents from a court.
Yeah.
So technically, all the registrars that did fold are in violation of the registrar agreement that the police were trying to strong on them with. By following the police's request, they're actually violating the registrar agreement. And if they had not, then the police's argument would have been invalid. So the registrars are not allowed to just seize the domain without a legal basis for it.
So they actually are breaking their own rules.
Yes, they're breaking the registration rules by seizing the domain.
Yes.
Rather than avoiding breaking the rule by seizing the domain, like they thought they were.
Right. Pretty gross.
It's the problem with these giant, long legal documents, right?
Very true.
Especially when you need a lawyer to parse them.
Yeah, it's very true.
So then it got worse. Later on, one customer who had their domain seized decided they wanted to transfer their domain to EasyDNS, who was fighting back against this nonsense. But the registrar, the registrar it was moving from, refused to release the domain in violation of ICANN policy. Right? They have 7 days to release their domain, and then they didn't.
This is fascism almost.
Yeah.
It really is almost fascism, isn't it?
Well, the registrar is concerned that, that they're going to get in trouble from the London police if they do release the domain.
Right. And you have the London police who are being driven by their financial backers, corporations. By
these corporations that own them.
Right. And then the police, go to these registrars who are then co-opted by the police to do things that they shouldn't be doing. They're actually against their very own rules. To me, it's very much fascism in sort of like the kind of like not totally horribly aggressive, like oppressive way, but like government and companies in bed together in a very bad way.
It's more corruption than fascism.
That definitely is absolutely corruption. But now I'm starting to feel a little bit of fascism getting mixed in there. A dash. Maybe. A dash of fascism.
Well, yeah, because there's no due process going on here, right? They're not proving that somebody did anything wrong.
No, they're just in bed together, and because that's what Daddy wants, that's what the government goes and does.
Yep. And so ICANN made a request to VeriSign, who actually operates the .com and .net registries, to make a ruling and force the release of the domain from the losing registrar. However, VeriSign rendered a decision of no decision. So VeriSign's reason for having no decision is that the losing registrar failed to provide the required documentation.
It's because they're not following proper procedure.
Yeah, so you're refusing to give over the domain because the people who are losing, it says here, reason for decision. Pursuant to section 3.3.4 of the Register Transfer Dispute Resolution Policy, the data provided by the respondent is inconclusive as to the issue presented. So because the losing registrar just failed to send enough information or to send information that proved their point, their decision is to not do anything yet.
They're taking the easy way out.
But if
they're punting,
but if the losing registrar can't prove why they're holding on to the domain, they should be forced to release the domain.
Seems like the default. It should be a default decision. Like
exactly. So if you lose in this, then when it comes to court, if you just don't show up, then you don't lose.
I guess
it doesn't work like that in the real legal system.
Right.
So EasyDNS is now appealing the decision with ICANN to force the domain to be released to them.
Good.
And maybe ICANN will make it a ruling and decide that, they're going to wrist slap every registrar who freezes a domain without a court order.
That's awesome. It's very good.
The problem is the courts, A, don't want to deal with this, but B, would probably do a bad job. They would start rubber stamping these things.
Yeah, and of course, I mean, EasyDNS doesn't want to be put in the position of, what are you trying to defend? Are you trying to defend pirates and piracy? Don't you appreciate intellectual property?
You have to, don't you see that they're not even proving these people are doing piracy? Right? Mm-hmm. That's EasyDNS's stance. It's not that they support the pirates. Is that unless you're proving somebody's doing something wrong, what's to stop them from just seizing the EasyDNS domain?
Right. Well, when there's a corporate backer that has enough interest to shut EasyDNS down, maybe they will. Hopefully not. Hopefully not, because they're using copyright inappropriately to accomplish this, and they probably would shut down EasyDNS if they had a good copyright claim. All right, Alan, any other thoughts on that one?
Yep.
Well, then, I want to thank our last sponsor for this week's episode of the TechSNAP program, and that is Ting.com. Ting is mobile. It makes sense. My mobile service provider. And Ting is no contracts, no early termination fees, and you only pay for what you use. I love that aspect of it. One of the fantastic things for myself is I have in the past been on the phone a lot as a contractor with many clients, organizing all of that, answering questions, helping people work through things. And now as I've come back into production content for Jupiter Broadcasting, it's been great to have my cell service automatically adjust with my needs. I've been using Ting since about the beginning of the year, and you only pay for what you use. They take your messages, your megabytes, and your minutes, and they add them all up at the end of the month, and then whatever bucket you fall into, that's what you pay. Each device is only $6 per month, and then just anything on top of that. Included with your plan is hotspot and tethering, which is really sweet, as well as voicemail, picture messaging, roaming, all these things that you might expect have to be part of different plans or have different tiers on other service providers. Ting includes it. It's simple, it's logical, it's very easy to use. And Alan, one of the great things about Ting is they're challenging the whole mobile industry. They're trying to push things forward. They're trying to make it more fair for consumers. If they focus on you buy your device, you own your device, and then you only pay for what you use, and that's how they're able to accomplish that. And, the Ting blog is a very active place where Ting is always posting what's on their mind and what they're thinking about. And yesterday, they posted wholesale wireless would be a positive step for Canada. They're working for you, man. They're working for you. They know you want your Ting service up there in Canada.
I do.
So they have a really good post about like why it needs to happen in Canada and what the current situation is. It just shows you how closely Ting watches this kind of stuff. I just recently got my Nexus 5. This would be a great Allen phone. It's straightforward.
Well, it's actually the one I want.
It's perfect. It really is for you. For me, I like the HTC one because it's got a little more flash to it, but this is fast. And it's, Google stock, right? I've got all the Google experience ROM.
That's what I like.
I get the updates.
I don't want all the extra stuff. I just want...
Yeah.
Yeah.
And the call quality is awesome on the Nexus 5. I got to give them big props for that, too. And the battery life has been really good, too, which has been really kind of a nice improvement from the HTC One. The HTC One's battery life...
Well, I'm like spoiled by my Nexus S, which does like 2 days.
Yeah, you got like... Yeah. Ting's also rolling out new devices. In fact, one of the new devices they just added is the Kyocera Milano, which has a physical QWERTY keyboard. And we've heard some folks, like Q5Sys in our IRC chat room, he says, I got to have a QWERTY keyboard. I got to have it. Now, it is a little bit older of Android, but if you want pretty much every app that's available for Android, it's still going to run on this device, and you're going to get a QWERTY keyboard. Plus, when you apply our discount by visiting techsnap.ting.com, $42 with no contract and no early termination fee, an Android phone with a QWERTY keyboard for $42, you own it outright, and you only pay for what you use. How crazy is that? Now, you're still considering it, right? Well, let me tell you about the Ting dashboard. Oh, boy, other cell phone providers, I'm sure they're going to try to copy this. I'm sure they're working on it right now, but they just can't figure it out because it is a beautiful design, simple to use, but extremely powerful. And I can tell you, it is extremely, activating my Nexus 5 lets you do all kinds of very advanced services that you normally would have to call into the cell phone provider to have them do for you and walk them through and try to explain what you're doing. Ting makes it possible. Just click, 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 and you're done. Their dashboard is fantastic. It's one of the things that keeps me a happy Ting customer. Also, their fantastic customer service. You can call them anytime between 8 a.m. and 8 p.m. Eastern. That's Alan's time zone. 855-TING-FTW, and a real Canadian who's on average probably better looking than the American counterpart will answer the phone. Alan, what is it? How come you guys are so good looking up there? What is it with you guys? It makes me so jealous. I just don't even understand. So,
weather, yes.
yeah, I was thinking it was the water. So go over to techsnap.ting.com to get started. And, you know, it could also be that early Thanksgiving. That could be it.
Yeah.
I think it's what it is.
You know, eating the food when it's fresh is always better.
You guys, your guys' food is available sooner. It's fresher, and then you eat it, and I think it just gives you that healthy complexion. TechSNAP.ting.com to get started. A huge thanks to Ting for sponsoring the TechSNAP program. And you know what? A big thanks to you guys for checking them out. We've been hearing from so many of you who have switched to Ting and been so happy. And just a little public service announcement, December 13th, which is tomorrow, so this is for all of you live viewers or anybody that downloads the day we release, tomorrow, December 13th, is the last day you're going to be able to order something from Ting and have a good chance it's going to show up on Christmas. If you order after that, deal's off, man. Who knows what's going to happen? I mean, you're still going to get your phone, but then you get into that holiday compression where, like, shipping times go up.
There's a couple of days between Christmas and then before the New Year's holidays where it might show up. And, you know, that's really bad for me because it's like I'm going to be away for Christmas. Right? I'm going to my parents, and then there's like my dad's side of the family has their party after Christmas. So I won't be back until and so I'm really hoping my last Amazon order gets here
comes in time
by next Friday, because if it waits around till the Monday, then I'm not going to be home to get it.
That's why it's nice that Ting was like, hey, heads up, everybody. I saw it, I think, on their Google Plus page, like 13th is your last date order. And if you're still a little stuck, you're not quite sure because you're locked into some old school contract right now, Ting has an early termination relief program. Just go to ting.com/ETF. You grab your device, you port your number, and then you submit your early termination relief claim, and Ting will pay up to $75 per line that you have to cancel to come join them over at Ting. That's pretty awesome. So techsnap.ting.com is where you get started. That gives you $25 off your first device or $25 off your first month of service if you have a Sprint-compatible device you want to bring with you. So a huge thank you to Ting for sponsoring the TechSNAP program. I think, Alan, you should go for it. Like, whenever you're ready for your next phone.
Oh, yeah. I was waiting for a phone company here to have it.
Well, yeah, and Ting's trying. They're trying.
Yeah, and I would really like it if Ting got here.
Yeah, no kidding, right? All right, Alan. Well, I think that's everything we have for the news segment, isn't it?
Yeah.
All right, that was a meaty news segment. Holy smokes.
Was.
Lots of good links in the show notes, too. Alan has, especially that last story with all the easy DNS stuff, all of...
Yeah, their blog's been... and I've been actually emailing back and forth with Mark, the CEO there.
To get the official story.
Yep.
Nice.
Because we also talked... I've talked to him before, when we profiled his other service. The DNS failover thing we did a little while ago for dodging DNS attacks.
Yep. Oh, which might actually be good in the feedback. We got a question about that. All right, Alan. Well, no more time to waste. It's time for the TechSNAP feedback. Thanks for sending your emails to TechSNAP at JupiterBroadcasting.com or popping that contact link at the top of the Jupiter Broadcasting website, or even better, like our first emailer, starting a thread in our subreddit over at links.techsnap.tv. All right, Mr. Jude, so we just touched on it at the end of the last segment. Maybe there's a little bit of that DNS failover service that might work for this guy's question. This came in from Mr. Pershunik. I don't know how you say that, but surprise, surprise. He says, hello, TechSnappers. What can you do to protect against an ongoing DDoS attack? I'm writing on behalf of my brother, who is responsible for a newspaper in the Ukraine, who's currently being attacked. Any advice would be welcome. So, Alan, this is like, there's probably 100 different ways to answer this question depending on what kind of attack is happening. But maybe any general ideas that come to mind?
Yeah, if it's a full-on one, then you're likely down to having to look at a service like Prolexic or Staminas. That basically provides scrubbing centers. What they do is they anycast, so you would change the DNS for the website to be their anycast address, and they would then ingest the traffic going to your site at multiple scrubbing centers, like, U.S. East Coast, U.S. West Coast, and Europe or whatever. So if there's a 20 gigabit attack going on, no bandwidth transit provider wants to haul 20 gigabits of attack traffic across the Atlantic Ocean for no reason, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
So by anycasting it, you're going to pull, divide that 20 into 3 and pull it into 3 different places. So each one of those is now under the 10 gigabits of the connection the place has or whatever, right? They suck all that in, then they, apply rules, scrub out, figure out what's legitimate and what's not, and then they send only the part that's legitimate traffic through back to the actual website in the Ukraine over a GRE tunnel. So they would basically ingest, scrub the traffic, and send only the good stuff back to you over a tunnel. And then you respond to the users either directly or through the tunnel, depending on the setup.
Right. Okay. What about...
So that's, if you need... those solutions are very expensive.
Yeah.
But that's, if you're a newspaper, that's something closer to probably what you're looking at. Especially if, you can't get the amount of bandwidth you need to try to combat it yourself. Or... if you have multiple locations and so on,
yeah, that's what I was thinking.
My talk at EuroBSDCon was specifically on this subject and how to build your own solution.
So if you could have maybe multiple colos or multiple servers out there somewhere, there's maybe a cheaper solution in the sense, what would you deactivate one site and fail over to the other site?
Yeah, there's a couple of different methods. The one you just mentioned is what I call whack-a-mole.
Yeah, it sounds
so
like
the load balancer sends everything to the first server. When that gets attacked so hard it goes down, you then switch the DNS to the next server. The real users switch. The attackers don't always switch right away. A lot of times they'll target a specific IP address instead of a DNS.
Yeah, right.
So you can't just point the DNS somewhere else to get them to stop attacking your server. So this way, when you do point the DNS somewhere else, the attack doesn't follow you. It sticks on the server.
Yeah.
And then all the real users go to the second server and everything's fine. And then if they switch over to the second one, then you move to the third one. And by then, hopefully, the first one's back up and you can rotate back to it.
That might, for just your casual punk who's just screwing with your site, that would probably solve your problem. And that just requires the cost of running another colo. There are a lot of different ways to handle this though, and there's more and more services. Some of them are better than others. There are certain services right now that kind of have a well-known name.
Well, it also depends. If you're doing only web traffic, there are more services like DOS arrest and so on that.
Yeah.
Instead of doing a scrubbing center and a GRE tunnel, they just run Varnish with some rules and stuff at a bunch of data centers and then proxy that back to your website. But the advantage with the GRE stuff is it works for any protocol, not web only.
So
but
if
it's just a website,
yeah. All right.
But if you protect just the website and the attacker then goes after your mail, then you have a different problem.
Yeah. I want to give a reminder, too. We want your emails and extra questions because we're recording 2 episodes of TechSNAP next week, back to back. I guess we'll start early like we've done before. We'll start at 11 o'clock Pacific, which is what, Eastern?
We're starting 2 hours early?
Yeah.
That'd be 2.
Yeah, okay. Okay, so
1400 instead of 1600.
We'll update jupiterbroadcasting.com/calendar, but we'd love to get more questions in because, we have to do 2 feedback segments. It'd also be a great opportunity to join us live because those are back-to-back marathons. So those live sessions are great. All right, Alan, our next question comes in from Boston. And this is
First, I added the link to my slides from my EuroBSDCon presentation that give you an overview of my proposals for a couple of different solutions to solving the problem. And I don't think the video of this is up yet. I'll have to dig into that more.
But the slides might be helpful.
Yeah, so I stuck up the slides, and they have almost everything except for my talking about it. And, you missed the joke of the elephant standing on a beach ball. A picture of an elephant standing on a beach ball is funny, but, it's funnier if you were there.
Yeah, okay. Boston writes in with a free NAS question, which is perfect. Mm-hmm. He says, hello, I'm a longtime listener to TechSNAP, and I love the show. I have a free NAS question. I have 2 computers, and would like to install free NAS and have some kind of redundancy. Well, that doesn't surprise me too much. He says, here's my scheme. Primary computer with disk 1 and disk 2. Secondary computer with disk 1 and disk 2. I have 2 computers with 2 different disks in each. Total size in each box is the same. I will put the computers in different parts of a building on the same LAN, so in case of fire or flood or any other catastrophic event is less likely to kill both computers. It's probably a pretty big building. Both because my computers are pretty old. They may die unexpectedly. Like I expect the power supply, the disk, and the motherboard to go out. Okay, so his question is, how do I set them up so that I'll use a primary computer, and when it dies, I'll start to use the secondary computer, hopefully automatically? Thanks for the answer. Keep up the good work.
So in the FreeNAS menus, there's settings for replication. So you can set up a schedule to like replicate all the data off the first one to the second one continuously. It's well, not quite continuously, but like every half hour or every hour or something to that effect.
Yeah.
So that'll keep the second one up to date. And then I don't know if they have it built into a menu, but you can set up something like CARP to do automatic failover.
Oh, okay. So you could use CARP. So what about, this is not as elegant, but what about just only addressing the FreeNAS box by its DNS name ever? And when one of them dies, you just go into DNS and you just change it.
It could be automatic, yeah.
You could.
So it's also partly the answer to the next question and the previous question. So what we use at Scale Engine is GDNSD. And so, yeah, if you use DNS to access your NAS, GDNSD can monitor. And that if the first primary goes down, it'll switch the DNS in the... it'll switch the DNS in... the IP in the DNS to point to the second FreeNAS, and then everything will go there instead.
Perfect. Okay. I just dropped a link to the FreeNAS replication wiki entry on setting up that, so he can check that out and read more about that. And the nice thing about FreeNAS...
By the sounds of it, he's using 2 mismatch-sized hard drives in each machine. If you're really worried about uptime and stuff, you might consider getting newer hardware.
Yeah, well, for sure.
But, you know... a lot of times having the second machine is actually better redundancy than, you know, you can have a machine with dual power supplies and ECC RAM and a strong RAID setup, but there are still things that can kill it that wouldn't kill 2 cheap boxes.
Right. Yeah. It's one point. It's still at the end of the day, one box.
Yeah.
With redundant parts. Yeah.
Yeah. That's why we use 2 boxes with all the redundant parts.
Plus, it's kind of a fun setup. You know, it's a little more fun than doing one FreeNAS system. The thing is I wonder, you know, it kind of depends on his data load, what that replication would look like. And so he's going to have to play with that. But so kind of back on the DNS train, Ryan writes in, he says, hey, guys, would you mind going into some details on a DNS setup that can direct a user to the server closest to them? Right now, I'm familiar with setting up DNS servers with round robin, but that could send someone all the way across the world when they have a server a few hops away. Any details would be great. Thanks, Ryan. What do you think, Alan? The nearest
that
DNS.
I gave a talk on that subject at EuroBSDCon the year before.
I should be going to EuroBSDCon.
And that one actually has a video.
Oh, upgrade. Okay, very good.
Yeah.
All right, okay.
Actually, I've showed it at the beginning of BSD Now.
Yeah, I was going to say. Yep. So BSD Now obviously is live on Wednesdays. Guys, of course, you knew that, right? And one of the things Balin does before BSD Now is he'll run like a half hour of like talks that he's done.
It's just random videos I have on my hard drive that I use as the pre-show.
Yeah, but it works, right? Because people, it's techie, so it's cool.
Yep.
So what is the? So I guess the long answer is watch the talk.
Right. So there are a couple different services that'll do this. I think Amazon Route 53 does this.
Yeah.
And a couple others.
Yeah.
But we use this open source app called GDNSD. That was written by Brendan Black at Logitech for routing driver downloads. It was A, make sure that the mirror's up before you send a user to it, and B, send them to the one closest to them. So instead of having people have to click which mirror they want and, you know, try to guess or whatever, it would be like, hey, the user is obviously coming from California. Let's send them to the mirror in Los Angeles instead of the one in Germany.
I always appreciate that. All right, I'm going to put a link to that in the. Let's say I'll put it right underneath your video. So their Git page. So you put a link to your talk in there, and I'll put a link to GDNSD.
Yep.
Okay. All right.
So we just use that, and it's actually the solution I propose for the denial of service thing as well, is using that and some business rules and newer versions of GDNSD that have come out since I did my talk in 2012. Allow external monitoring plugins. So we've actually started using Nagios plugins in GDNSD to check a server and figure out if it's under attack. And if it is, to treat it differently in our DNS routing. So this one can use a simple GeoIP database from Maxmine. The free one works. The pay one works better.
But the free one still has a GeoIP database. So.
Yeah. You can use the free GeoIP database, or you can use the pay GeoIP database.
Gotcha. Okay.
One breaks it down to like city level instead of just like state level.
Gotcha. All right. Well, Terrence writes in. He's a fan of Jupiter Broadcasting since 2011. He loves TechSNAP, BSD Now, and Linux Unplugged. Now, get this. He just wanted to share a bit of a security breach, and he's got a question. He says, recently I received a notice from a community college that I had attended for dual enrollment when I was in high school 5 years ago. And they said that a security incident happened in April and may have compromised 2.5 million users' personal data, like including social security number, driver's license numbers, etc., mine being one of them. I'm really upset that it took them 8 months just to notify all those affected, and the news associated with the event seems to suggest the information wasn't stored offline or even encrypted or hashed. He's got a link if you guys are interested in this. He says, my question is this. While I know that the best practice for handling passwords is to use a salt and a hash, is there the same method for hashing salted passwords? What? Is the same method for hashing salted passwords also applicable to personal information? I.e., can one hash a document containing personal information? I know that some people use GPG to encrypt their documents or use TrueCrypt, but if the bad guys are able to brute force your password offline or use a keylogger, you're pretty much SOL. Keep up the great work, and thanks for the response.
So the reason they use hashing for passwords is because it's not reversible. So unlike encryption, where you can decrypt something, with a hash, you're taking whatever input and trimming it down to a little string. So if you hash a document, you can hash a 20 gigabyte virtual machine image down to a string this long. So there's obviously no way to go back from that string to the document. Otherwise, you would have invented the best compression algorithm ever.
Awesome. Yeah.
What you do, the reason you would hash a document was to prove that it had not changed. So hashing is done as a fingerprint. So the reason it works for a password is because instead of knowing what the password is, what the system does is hash the new password you just entered and then see if it's the same thing.
Mm-hmm. It just has to match.
So with that, it works for a password, but it wouldn't work for something like for any personal information because you wouldn't be able to get the information back because the hash is one way.
Yeah.
So you could use it to check if what the person was telling you is the same as what you have written down, but you can't use it to check or to actually see what the information is.
Right. That's what's great about it in a sense too, though. So
yes. So that's what makes it very useful for a lot of things, but wouldn't be useful for storing personal information if you actually need that personal information back. So hashing is one way, meaning you can't undo it, whereas encryption is two way. So the proper way to do this, I suppose, would be encrypting it and then storing the key offline somehow. There are systems for this. They're called hardware security modules, and it's what like certificate authorities use to store the key for signing certificates.
Right.
So that it's not easy for someone to hack in and get the key. The biggest problem with regular symmetric encryption is that the server that's going to encrypt the information needs the key to encrypt it. And in symmetric encryption, symmetric meaning the same on both sides, the key to encrypt is the same as the key to decrypt. So in order to save or update information in the database, you need the key. At Scale Engine for credit card storage, we use asymmetric encryption, where there's one key to encrypt and one key to decrypt. So the server has the encryption key and can take your credit card number over SSL, encrypt it, and write it in our database. But nothing can decrypt that without the private key, which is only on 2 pairs of USB sticks, one that I have and one that Stefan has, and they're stored offline. And so no one can get access to that key.
Or malware. Malware can't get access to it.
So if you hack the server, it has the public key, but all you can do is encrypt information. So you could overwrite the old information.
Yeah, but you're not getting any information.
But you couldn't get somebody's credit card number back. You would have to have the keys that I have stored locked in a cabinet. And I only take them out once a month to charge everybody's credit card.
Yeah. Good question though. That was
so it's really difficult because with regular symmetric encryption, our server would have the key that's used to encrypt the credit card. So if somebody hacked our server and got the database, they would probably also on that server be able to find the key that would let them decrypt the credit cards. And then what's the point of encrypting them at that point? And that's normally you see systems where that's like air gapped and they only connect it for a couple minutes at the end of each day to do a batch process of all the credit cards. Like some websites you'll notice when you go and you buy something, if you have, like I do, I get a text message every time my credit card's used. When I buy something, I immediately get a charge for $1 to make sure my credit card's working.
Yeah, a little check.
Yeah. And then at night during the batch run, it'll actually charge the full amount. And that's probably because they're storing all that information. Then in one fell swoop, they bulk move it into their secure database that's normally offline or whatever. Then they can do the charging and then
run it,
disconnect it again so that it can't be attacked except for doing that small window.
Right.
Which is reducing the exposure. So basic answer to your question is no, you can't hash a document. Now, when you sign a document, what you do is you take the hash and then you encrypt that hash with the private key to the public key. And what that lets you do is someone who's got the public key of the person who signed it can then say, I can check and make sure that that hash is still the same, which proves the document has not been modified. So that's how hashing can help with a document. You can use it to prove a document hasn't been modified.
It's authentic, yeah. But
you can't use it to store the information because it reduces the entire document down to a little string, a fingerprint. So, you can use a fingerprint to tell if one person is the same as this other person you're comparing to, but you can't use a fingerprint to tell everything about a person. Does that make sense?
It does make sense. Speaking of small windows, we have a small window of time on the Jupiter Broadcasting 2014 Limited shirt. 3 days, 2 hours. So if you're listening to this shortly after its production, you have a couple of days left to go grab one. We've now got hoodies and ladies' tees for the ladies out there, and also tagless short sleeve tees for those of you who live in warmer inclements or just prefer short sleeve shirts. I myself am looking forward to the hoodie. So go to teespring.com/Jupiter2014 if you want to grab yourself a shirt. We have sold 797 out of our goal of 499, which is awesome. So thank you guys very much. It's the only place right now to get our brand new logo that you'll see rolling out probably through beginning of the next
if we
year.
learned anything from the TechSNAP t-shirt campaign, is that there were a lot of people that were very disappointed that they didn't get one.
It's true.
So hurry up and get one.
3 days, 2 hours left as we record this. teespring.com/Jupiter2014 if you'd like to grab one. All right, Alan. Well, with the feedback all done, let's go do the TechSNAP Roundup. Welcome to the TechSNAP Roundup. Yeah, that's what that crazy music means. Now, the Roundup are stories that didn't quite fit at the top of the show, but we still want to talk about them, give you some links to follow up on your own after the show. And some of these links came from our subreddit over at links.techsnap.tv. And Alan, our first story on the Roundup this week reminds me a little bit of Silent Circle and Lava Bit. Certivox, which was kind of like a private messaging platform itself, has announced that they shut down their private messaging platform, Private Sky, after being approached by the GCHQ to build in a backdoor. And they said it literally came down to we could reinvent all of our technology from the ground up, or we could spend about $50,000 implementing the code changes the GCHQ wanted to give them access to everything that happens on the back end. Neither one was viable for us, so they're calling it. It's pretty sad to see that.
Yep.
But, at the same time, I'd rather these guys fold than let us get snooped on without us knowing about it. All right,
and that's why if you're going to build something like this, it has to be based on the key only exists on the client, so that there's no way for you as the provider to do anything in the middle. Right. That the biggest example of that I think is TarSnap, Colin Percival's backup service. He's specifically designed to make it so that nobody can force him to do anything because he literally doesn't have the ability to do anything.
And that's how LastPass works too. You encrypt and decrypt locally on the client side, and then it submits an encrypted file to the LastPass server.
Now, the reason why most services don't do that is because most end users love to reformat their machine and lose their keys.
And forget their passwords and all those good things.
But at the same time, it's the only way to ensure that the service can't do anything hinky. Well,
Alan, the next Roundup story is yours. It's Microsoft throwing around some labels, calling the U.S. government an advanced persistent threat.
So we've talked about advanced persistent threats before. It's when somebody's
like
constantly
China.
working on breaking into your system, or when they do break in, they don't exploit it right away. They just try to get as much information as they can. And I would agree that the U.S. government has proven that it can be an advanced persistent threat.
Wow, no kidding. Of the most advanced and the most persistent kind. Yeah,
exactly.
They got you at the wire level, I would say so.
Well, especially when they're spying in on the wire on your private link between two Microsoft data centers and things like that.
No doubt. This next story in the roundup caught my attention. It's a Bitcoin story, which I felt like was a bit of a throwback to the Bitcoin blaster for TechSNAP. It's also the biggest dollar amount I've seen tossed around for Bitcoin investment. Bitcoin's latest bet, Andreessen Horowitz, has just invested $25 million into the Coinbase startup. Now, one of the interesting things about Coinbase is not only is it an online wallet, but it also gives you, once you have an account set up and you've been verified, one-click purchase to buy Bitcoin and one-click to sell Bitcoin. So it makes buying Bitcoin as easy as buying like Microsoft points. It's sort of like the first Bitcoin service that is potentially going to turn Bitcoin into the internet points money. It's
right.
Very
How
simple.
do they deal with the reason for all the verification steps that everybody else has is fraud? How do they deal with that?
That's why they have the verification, and they're actually they're getting licenses in every state in the United States to comply with the financial.
I guess the biggest question is, how do they get the money from you that fast?
They link to your bank account, so the transaction doesn't happen immediately. So you buy it, at one set price, and then usually you get the Bitcoin like 4 or 5 days later. Now that might be different now. I haven't bought Bitcoin for a while from them.
Right, but you implied it was instant, and I was like, how can they do that without risking their whole business?
The sell is instant. I don't know about the buy.
Right. Well, the sell is instant because you've already given them the Bitcoin by that point, right?
I don't know. The buy might be if it's the reason why I'm saying maybe is because I think I almost want to say it was like under $50, but I can't remember. Or I mean under 50 Bitcoin, but that might be wrong.
Right.
Huge. I mean, 25 million though. That's actually some serious money now getting into the Bitcoin system.
Well, yeah, I'm wondering why they needed $25 million.
It actually literally
probably lawyers for all the forms they have to fill out.
I was seeing estimates on the cost to get the FIDSIN licensing that they need in every state, and it is, like in some states, just that state is $100,000. It is literally a scheme that you pay into to buy off the industry to get in, and then they check you off and you're good to go. But like in New York, I think it's $100,000 just for New York. And that's just one state. So they're going to need some money, and that's some big money. All right, on the next one is a post on Hacker News that you linked up. What's this one about?
Yes, it was a NetBSD machine that was finally taken down after 8 years and 122 days of uptime.
Whoa, 8 years. That's respectable.
Yep. So it was set up as a dial-up gateway for a company, and it was running NetBSD 1.3, and it was set up in 1998 on a compact Pentium 90 megahertz with 32 megabytes of RAM. And the consultant got a call last year from the owner saying that it had stopped working. So he pulled the disks out and plugged it into a USB adapter because he didn't have IDE ports in any of his newer computers. And he had no PS2 keyboard to connect to it or anything like that. He suspected hardware failure was the problem. Turns out it wasn't. But that the max uptime that had been logged was 8 years and 122 days. It was still being used for dial-up, but it turns out it stopped working because the dial-up company went out of business.
Surprise, surprise.
Yeah. And it's since been replaced with a cheap ADSL connection and a router.
Oh, okay.
But apparently ADSL only became available in the location where this machine was running about 6 months ago.
A little late.
Yeah. And he says some of his notes on running a really, really long-term server is the log files had eaten up nearly the entire 2 gigabyte disk.
For sure.
Make sure you set up log rotate.
Yep.
I'm not sure how they didn't eat up the whole disk and all that time.
No kidding.
The clock had drifted by about 5 days over the course of 8 years, which isn't so bad, but make sure you run NTP.
Yeah.
Don't assume that you can leave something that it'll be sensibly secure for that long. In this case, it wasn't running really any services, and it was just acting as a connection to let you proxy out to the internet or to dial out to the internet, not incoming. So it wasn't that susceptible, but at the same time, if you're doing it now, you would definitely treat it a little differently. And then, plan for connectivity mode changes, because whatever you're using to connect to the internet right now probably won't be the same 10 years from now.
No kidding. Flash update from the chat room. Charles Bursma says that verified users of Coinbase can buy Bitcoins immediately, but there is a limit on how many they can buy. So they do. So Coinbase...
so that they're trading off the risk.
Yeah, I think so. Somebody's got to do it. Maybe that's what they need $25 million for. This one, I really wanted to get your take on it, because this is one of the bigger stories I saw crop up around the web over the last week. We cannot trust Intel and VIA's chip-based crypto, FreeBSD developers claim. And they want to, I guess, re-implement it in software completely? Do you know about this story?
Well, not exactly, yes. So FreeBSD has a pluggable system where you can choose which engine to use.
Okay.
One was Yarrow, which is an algorithm written by Bruce Schneier. And then there was the RDRAN from Intel or Padlock from VIA. They've since changed it so you cannot choose to directly use the ones from the CPU. And the ones from the CPU are then fed into Yarrow, mixed up some more, and then used.
Okay.
We just don't use the one from Intel as the only source of randomness.
And this isn't they are worried that the NSA has altered the spec for the Intel random number generators. Is that what
they could have?
Yeah.
Yes. That they have could in the future or something.
And this change will roll out in FreeBSD 10.
It'll become the default in FreeBSD 10. Yes. Okay. You can choose which number generator in 9 already, I think, and I think the default's Yarrow, so it's not like you were using RDRAN directly before anyway. It's just now it's not an option to use it directly. If an app wants to use it directly, you can use assembly or access it through OpenSSL. Something
tells me you probably covered this in BSD Now, which will be coming out tomorrow.
Yes, yesterday.
Yeah. I remember
which includes an interview with Santa Claus.
Right. That created quite the stir, actually. I remember when we were covering the Linux kernel developer's response to this, he kind of said something similar, where when they do take input from the CPU, they run it through another system that randomizes it again, and they add noise to it. I think this is a pretty strong reaction, and it's also a very strong statement from the FreeBSD developers, which is kind of awesome. So there you go. All right. Now this next one, Alan, oh boy. I'm just gonna give up after I read this one. Researchers can slip an undetectable Trojan into Intel's Ivy Bridge CPUs. Okay, this sounds like the stuff movies are made of. How do you sneak a Trojan into an Ivy Bridge CPU? That's all kinds of scary. Well, it's not
quite a Trojan, but by adding a little bit of like, I don't know, some kind of flex doping or something, by making these very, very subtle changes to the CPU, either in the design phase, like the document before they send it to the plant, or at the plant, by making changes to 256 or 512 of the transistors out of the billion transistors that are on the chip,
right?
They can reduce the entropy generated by the random number generator down to 32 bits, which is trivial amount. So that, that's almost as bad as the Debian entropy problem.
I mean, but let's...
Which was like 16 states, I think, which is 8 bits.
So to pull this off, the attacker would have to intercept an Ivy Bridge-based CPU en route to on the manufacturing floor, and then know what customer that CPU ended up at.
They could do it to all of them.
Well, that's true.
If you were, say, the Chinese government, you hack into Intel, who's using Office 365, you get the token, you make a small change to some engineering documents that nobody detects, you get sent off to manufacturing, and
you're right.
All the chips now have a bogus random number generator.
And I don't know where Intel builds their chips, so this statement could be wrong, but a lot of chips are built...
Taiwan?
See, so if they're built... Okay, but if you build something in China, nothing says the Chinese government couldn't come knocking on that manufacturer's door and say, "Citizen, we need you to do something for national security." And then they just do it there at the plant, and the company's none the wiser that commissions the building. A good article over at Ars Technica, pretty out there, but makes you think a little bit. All right, so this next story is of my personal soapbox. I'm going to admit it, that's why we slipped into the roundup. YouTube fails at explaining the flood of takedowns for Let's Play videos, among other things. YouTube has made adjustments to their content ID system to make it easier for people to claim that something is theirs, to enable content ID, and then any video on YouTube that has that something will get flagged by YouTube. The immediate reaction is if you're a YouTube partner, you lose monetization options, so you don't get a rev share. They'll still display ads, don't you worry, but the creator doesn't get any ads. The slightly worse version is the video gets pulled. So last Saturday, Unfilter got pulled from YouTube because of our guitar sound intro song that we use. A couple of days before that, Linux Unplugged got pulled. A couple of days before that, SciByte got pulled. A couple of days before that, TechSNAP got pulled. So we've been having this happen to all of our videos. Now, I dispute them. They go back up immediately when I dispute them. But in some cases, I've lost a dispute, and the videos are still available, but in all cases, I've lost monetization. Now, it's not a lot of money, but for some networks, it's how they make their money. It's like the only way. It's crazy, and it's the only way they make their money. And now they are suffering because anybody can content ID anything, and it seems like the system is expanding. So last night's Unfiltered that went up, episode 78, within 10 minutes of it being posted on YouTube, I had 2 content ID claims against it for the same song in the first 4 seconds of the video. Or actually, the first 20 seconds of the video. 2 different companies are claiming the same song.
Isn't the rule for fair use up to 30 seconds?
Well, that's true, too. Well, the worst...
So, as long as you're not using more than 30 seconds, it's supposed to be okay.
Well, no, the worst part is not only do I have a legal license to the music, like I have a license from the creator, but I have right in my phone, right here, I have an email from the creator of the songs telling me that it's okay and that he's trying to fight this. The guy that makes the music, who we feature in our shows, he's trying to fight it too. Like the content creator, both of us are getting screwed. Jupiter Broadcasting is getting screwed.
His videos are going to get pulled down because some company is claiming they own his music.
2 different companies. 2 different companies made claims on the same song in the first 20 seconds of last night's Unfiltered. It is completely broken, and what's happening is some of the larger networks like ABC, CBS, they are not held to the same standard. They don't get content ID run on their channels. So you can see how, once again, using copyright, you can start to silo off the internet and work out the little people and crush them and reduce their profits and
it can
pull
also
their videos.
be the little people that are doing it, though. If you remember a story a couple months ago, NASA had a video they posted pulled down because some local news station had run the video and content ID'd against the original NASA video.
Also, that got SciByte pulled down because we played a clip of it in that week's episode of SciByte, so SciByte was pulled down. And the worst part is videos that I have had up on YouTube for years. Jupiter Broadcasting just recently crossed like the 1337, like we're at 1335 videos on YouTube right now. And so we have years worth of content on there. Some videos have been up there for multiple years, and all of a sudden one day, content ID, and it gets pulled down. Sometimes it's available in the U.S., and it's not available in other countries. Sometimes it's not available anywhere. It's a horrible system. YouTube's totally going to shit over this. I mean, it really, I'm not exaggerating at all. It literally is being destroyed. A lot of the big YouTube personalities are really upset about it. Hopefully YouTube will scale back on this, because what you're going to see if it doesn't happen is a lot less independent content on YouTube, which honestly, that's what I go to YouTube for. If I want to watch funny Saturday Night Live clips or something like that, I go to Hulu. I don't go to YouTube for the commercial stuff. I go to it for the stuff created by other users of the internet. So screw you, Google, and screw you, YouTube. You're ruining it. That's my take on it, Alan.
Yeah. Well, it's not really YouTube's fault. They're doing this so they don't get sued.
I feel like what they've done is they've said, well, look, baby, let's work out the perfect system. People can use your stuff, and you'll make money off it. They won't make any money off using your stuff, but you will. And it's like they're pitching it to these copyright holders as, this is your new monetization platform, and you make money off people using your stuff. We've solved the copyright problem. In reality, it's just screwing everybody.
If they're just pulling the advertising, if you use someone else's stuff, that's one thing. But if they're pulling the video right down, then nobody's making any money off of it.
It depends on the claim, yeah. So like in the case, so right now, I don't think anything remains offline in the case of the Jupiter Broadcasting videos, but definitely nothing's monetized. So it's balls. It is. All right. Well, next story in the roundup.
The worst part is that it seems to have no respect for fair use, but technically, Google owns YouTube, so they can say that, no, our policies, you're not allowed to use other people's stuff at all.
And you are automatically guilty until proven innocent. And even when you have legal documents to prove that you have license to the content, it is still up to some
sort of... big enough for us to care.
So like last week's, or maybe it was this week's Linux Unplugged, it's been happening so much I can't keep it straight. I disputed the copyright claim, provided the license documentation, and they still declined my dispute.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know how that works.
A bigger thing that's happening with this also is that they're pulling down videos of video games. Mm-hmm. If you show a clip of you playing a video game, they're pulling that down.
Yeah, they're saying the video game...
Because the game companies claim they own the copyright on the video game. It's like, you own the video game, but a video of me playing it, that's, I chose how the camera got pointed and stuff.
Yeah.
It's definitely my own creation.
Well, and it's also good marketing for the video games.
Well, I think how it started was Activision wanted to pull down all the bad reviews of Call of Duty.
Yeah. Yeah, again, abusing copyright.
Yes, abusing copyright for what literally should be a violation of the Federal Trade Commission rules on trying to just go after anybody that says anything bad about you.
Mm-hmm. All right, well, let's shift gears and talk about Discuss, a pretty popular commenting service for blogs. They've been cracked, apparently.
Which some of my sites.
Yeah, I do too.
Yeah, so, well, not cracked per se, but apparently some sites you can set up Discuss to allow anonymous commenting. But the problem, or, people can just comment with, a pseudonym. But Discuss uses the MD5 hash of the email address as some kind of unique identifier or something. And using their API, you can find out the unique hash of someone. Mm-hmm. This was added as a way for, if you ban someone from a site, you can block their ability to comment, but their email address, so you can say, this hash isn't allowed to comment on our site. Anyway, some researchers found a way to go back from that and de-anonymize posts by brute forcing the MD5, feeding it a list of email addresses. In the page, they actually talk about using the list from Adobe. It's like, here's 150 email addresses. You can calculate the MD5 sums of those really quickly, because you can calculate lots of hashes per second. Mm-hmm. And from that, you could know if any of those email addresses match up to any of these Discuss IDs. So anyway, apparently a tabloid in, I think it was Switzerland, used it to out some politicians who were posting comments on hate speech sites. So, all this comes down to a tabloid, but it turns out that, you're not as synonymous as you think you are on the internet. Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm. Well, Alan, sometimes a simple phone glitch can lead to hundreds of folks being delayed in their travels as the holiday approaches. That happened in the UK.
Hundreds of flights of hundreds of people.
Right, yeah, hundreds of flights with hundreds of people on those flights. Yeah, pretty bad. Now, did you catch the details on a phone glitch? I know that's what they blamed it on.
Not really, but apparently their air traffic control system at some point relies on a telephone system that was having troubles.
Go figure, right? Yeah, it says here that they had to cancel 228 flights. Wow.
Plus, there were hundreds more that were just
300
delayed.
of its flights were delayed. Yeah. Wow, that is a mess, and not something.
It was fixed later on, but apparently they had some serious problems, and apparently it was unrelated to some other similar thing they had not that long ago.
All right. Next article from Computer World: IT managers are increasingly replacing servers with software as a service, probably to save money in some regards, so they don't have to do initial investments.
Right, but the part of the story I highlighted was that the IDC study found or suggests that by 2017, 45% of all new server hardware that is bought will be bought by cloud providers rather than enterprise.
I'm kind of surprised. I'm surprised it's not already that way now. You buy a lot of servers.
Still well, I'm not technically a cloud provider.
I know. Well, you kind of are. And look at Google. Like, they buy so many servers. I almost.
Yeah, but lots of every business buys a couple of servers. Right?
True. That's true. That's true.
So Google only buys so many each year, right? They have 100,000 servers, but they have like a 5-year life cycle.
Yeah, that's true. I guess if you figure almost every even small business usually has a server or two clunking around somewhere in their building.
Yep.
Yeah, boy. So they're saying. So IDC is saying by 2017, 45% of servers leaving manufacturers.
But part of it comes down to your definition of a cloud provider, right? Because all the places that rent dedicated servers, technically, they're not providing cloud; they're renting out the whole server. Okay. But most of them also have virtual machines now, so they are the cloud at the same time.
You're right, Alan.
Right, and then when a business buys a bunch of servers and they use half for cloud and half not, how do you count that in this study? And this is just based on some market research, right? Mm-hmm. It's definitely not conclusive, but
anytime it's cloud, you're starting with a fuzzy definition
of everything.
Yeah, it's a bad starting point. But I do have a good starting point for you. Our last link in the roundup this week: Zettabytes for Days, episode 14 of BSD Now, which came out last Friday. Alan, this is a really great episode. First of all, it's got the Linux users checking it out, because it's all about ZFS, but you guys took it up a notch with your guest, didn't you?
Well, yeah, we managed to get George Wilson, one of the main guys that worked on ZFS. He's been working on free space histograms, so better ways to deal with when your pool's really full, or when your pool's almost full and you add a bunch more disks to it, balancing the way it writes out data to the new disks instead of a little bit to each disk kind of stuff. And lots of interesting stuff. And he answered all kinds of great questions for us. He was a great guest.
So we're kind of seeing this progression that we think that we can, especially as you start looking at servers that have like, a 512 gig or a terabyte of RAM, being able to get double that would be fantastic.
Yeah, that is.
We also talked about compressed ARC. So, the biggest thing with ZFS is it uses, it wants to use as much memory as you can give it to make it faster.
Yeah.
Well, we found that LZ4 compression, turning it on, compresses stuff a lot and doesn't really burn all that much CPU time.
Well,
right? Because LZ4 is amazing, right?
Yeah, and CPUs have a lot of horsepower now.
Yeah, especially when you got like 24 cores, right? Or 32 now even. Well, so why not compress the entire ARC when it's in RAM?
I guess so, yeah.
So they're looking at they already have compressed L2 ARC, so you can do the compression on the SSD for all the stuff that's your second tier of cache. They're looking at the way that it'll start conservatively again, because they don't want to make sweeping changes to ZFS and turn out breaking something.
Yeah.
Because the whole point of ZFS is that it ensures you never lose your data. When the ARC gets more than so much full, it'll start compressing things. So there'll still be a part that will always be uncompressed, but the eventual goal is to have most things that are in the L2 ARC or the main ARC to be compressed, so that RAM you're giving it can go further. Because if you can get even 20% compression, which isn't all that much, especially when you're dealing with databases that are mostly text, right?
Yeah.
Then you're if you have a gig of RAM, all of a sudden you have 1.2 gigs of RAM. Well, that's 256 gigs of RAM you just pulled out of nothing.
Right. That's respectable.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, good episode. That was episode 14 of BSD Now.
And as I mentioned, episode 15 was actually about FreeNAS, and Santa Claus was our guest.
That was very awesome. So if you have been interested in FreeNAS, you guys must have got a little ZFS discussion going in a FreeNAS episode too. We
got to talk about a couple of other things that we didn't talk with George about.
Yeah.
And also this morning, George did ZFS office hours, where developers working on stuff related to ZFS or working on ZFS on Linux and things like that can ask him very technical questions. So if you're interested in a lot of the internals and more technical stuff and features that people are just starting to work on, there's like an hour-long YouTube video on that. And they're also scheduling more of those in the future. And you can jump on Google Plus or IRC and ask questions and have them answered in real time.
So it's called ZFS Office Hours?
Yep, that's at open-zfs.org.
Very good. All right, Alan. Well, I think that brings us to the end of this week's episode. Don't forget, double episode next week, so join us live for that. We'll be starting at 11 a.m. Pacific, which is
2 p.m. Eastern, so 2 hours earlier than the regular time.
Yep, over at jblive.tv and jblive.info for the audio stream. We'd love to have you in the IRC and help us title our episode. And that, we always need it when we do back-to-back episodes, because Alan and I, we've got good creative juices for maybe one title in us on a good day, but 2 episodes, that's hard, man. That's hard.
Yeah, that's just not going to happen.
All right, Alan. Was there anything else we need to cover before we run? I don't think so.
That's about it.
All right. Okay, everyone. Well, thank you so much for tuning this week's episode of TechSNAP. We'll see you right back here next week.